We at KKR, we really have what I consider to be more of an apprenticeship model. And ultimately, there's this really great mutual beneficial relationship that's formed. They're helping you, you're helping them, we're helping the firm, and we're helping our client. Hi, I'm Eric Mogelof.
And I'm Marisa Parnes, and you're dining in at KKR. Hi, Eric. Thanks for getting a coffee with me today.
Oh, hey, Marisa. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is great.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get to talk to you. So I'm so curious, what led you to join KKR after nearly 2 decades with another asset manager?
Before getting the call from KKR, I really didn't know a whole lot about the organization and the firm. Although I will tell you, after meeting people here, it was amazing to learn about the firm's culture and really get to know the organization. I would say there were really 3 things that attracted me to the firm. The first was what an amazing group of talented people that were here at the organization, but who operated in a very collaborative and collegial environment. You don't often find firms that have these really talented people, but they also work so well together. The second I would say is the opportunity to help the organization. KKR has invested and built out such great investment capabilities around private equity, infrastructure, real estate, and credit, but the firm hadn't really scaled the client business. And so the opportunity to come here and really help grow the client franchise was really exciting. And the third reason why I was excited to come here was really the opportunity to learn. You know, I had spent the overwhelming part of my career focused on the public markets. And so the chance to come to a best-in-class alternative manager and learn how a firm sources, how a firm underwrites, and how a firm manages risk was really just an amazing opportunity. I'd also add one other thing that was just really amazing and really attracted me to the firm was an experience I had during the interview process with Scott Nuttall, who you know is our co-CEO. So during the interview, Scott reached into his desk and he pulled out this 2-page document. And at the top it said KKR culture. And it literally listed every component of the firm's culture with an explanation. And it was just really amazing to see how explicit KKR is about the firm culture. And you know, the message to me was, hey, this is who we are. This is how we operate. Are you interested? And it was really exciting. And I think that that really was a big reason why I came to KKR.
I had a similar experience when I was going through the process of coming over to KKR a few years ago. I also didn't know too much about the firm's capabilities other than the great brand that we have on the street. It became clear to me through my interview process, having met so many different people, that the team here is so impressive, but also so welcoming and so friendly. And as you mentioned about the opportunity, I thought what the firm was doing with bringing principal credit investing capabilities and a broad capital markets expertise together was a really one-of-a-kind platform that I was excited to be a part of. KCS has grown so much since you joined the firm in 2020. How do you ensure that new hires mesh with the culture at KKR?
We start talking about culture, not when an employee gets to KKR, but during the interview process, which is so helpful because it really gives people an opportunity to understand, is this the firm and this the culture they want to be part of? And then, by the way, we don't stop there. As part of every person's performance review, one of the key components is evaluating someone, are they living the values and the culture of the firm? And by the way, if someone isn't, there's always an opportunity for us to make sure they get that feedback so that they can adjust and then again, really live our culture.
So what advice would you give to newcomers to the firm?
So I think, you know, one of the most important things is really building relationships within the organization. You know, we talk about how important it is to break down silos, how important it is to connect the dots. And it's really hard to do that if you don't know people. And so I would tell you, anyone who joins here, the first 6 months at least, you know, you really want to invest in getting to know people, and people not just in your group, but across the firm. So I'd say that's really one important piece of advice. The second is you really got to learn the whole firm. So you may join one particular group and get an understanding of what that group does, but for you to be able to really have a bigger impact on the organization, you got to understand everything that we do, right? We're an asset manager, we're an insurance company, strategic holdings. Like, unless you really understand the firm business model, you can't really contribute fully. And the third thing that's really important is living the culture day one. So let me just tell you a quick story. So I got here to the firm and I'm learning the culture and I'm learning the language we use. And it didn't quite feel like my own. It didn't quite feel authentic for me to start using that same language in the same way. And at my first mid-year review, I remember Scott saying, "Hey, Eric, you really you got to live the culture." And I said to him, "It just doesn't feel quite yet like my own." And he said, "Eric, you're here at KKR. It's your culture too." And so my best advice for anybody that joins here, it's not the firm's culture, it's your culture the minute you get here, and you should feel authentic being part of it day one.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me. I think for me, very similarly, intellectual curiosity is such a huge part of how you become successful here. And it feeds well into what you were saying about getting to know not just your business, but the whole firm and how the work you're doing on a day-to-day basis plays into the broader goals and mission and growth of KKR altogether. I think I've learned so much over the last few years just by asking the simple question of why. Why are we doing something this way? Why are we making this type of decision? Why aren't we making this type of decision? Those questions are so simple, but they lead to so much learning and growth and have allowed me to build my internal network and meet so many more people that I otherwise wouldn't have. Curiosity is really what sets apart high performers on our team. I think those people who can really excel are the ones who go the extra mile, who spend the extra hour looking up a piece of diligence information or looking up another fact about a business. Those are the people that we see really excel on our team. Can you describe the mentorship model at KKR?
We at KKR, we really have what I consider to be more of an apprenticeship model. So of course, professionals here are very vested in our junior talent to provide mentorship and coaching and education. And so that's really important. But I think it goes beyond that. What we find is when you join here as a junior professional, you really are paired up with someone who's seasoned, who's an expert, who's been doing this for a really long time. And they really do develop with you this apprenticeship model where they're teaching you, they're helping you to learn the trade, and ultimately there's this really great mutual beneficial relationship that's formed. They're helping you, you're helping them, we're helping the firm, and we're helping our clients. And so I would say this is this really unique bond that gets developed between our senior and junior professionals.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that personally since I've been at KKR. I think there's a lot of unique osmosis that happens just by being in the office, collaborating with people on the desk or in a side room. It definitely feels like the senior people have invested in me and in my peers and really want the best for us.
Yeah, and I'd also say there's no one size fits all. Ultimately, every individual gets real customized and personalized advice and guidance, really depending upon their interest, their skill set. And so there's this really unique bond that forms.
What do you think are some misconceptions about working for KKR?
So I think there are probably two misconceptions. So the first is, look, we're a really large multi-asset alternatives manager. In fact, we're one of the largest in the world. But people sometimes assume that means that KKR is this really big place. The fact is, we're really not that big. We operate leanly. It's a relatively flat organization. And what that means is everybody here gets an opportunity to take on a lot of opportunity, a lot of responsibility, and have a really big impact on the organization. The second misconception is around who we serve. I think historically, people view KKR as really just an institutional asset manager. But obviously today, we're one of the largest wealth evergreen alternative managers in the world. We work with clients around the world, whether they be institutional, insurance, family capital, and then obviously through the wealth channels.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say a very similar thing, which is I think it's very easy for organizations to talk about how they're very lean or afford a lot of responsibility to juniors at a young stage in their careers. I think has been exciting but also somewhat surprising for me is just how true that has been, both through my own experience and also through talking to new hires that we've had on our team. We afford juniors the opportunity to spearhead the diligence process, lead calls both internally and externally, and not just form, but also communicate and share their opinions, whether it's on a new deal or a structure. We really give a lot of responsibility to analysts and associates early on in their careers, and I think we don't just talk about that. It's really, you can really see it in our team structures and how we operate on a day-to-day basis.
And by the way, that's the reason why our junior talent here grows their careers so quickly. They get an opportunity to take on so much responsibility, do things that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do somewhere else. And so all of a sudden they're learning faster and they're having a bigger impact.
Yeah, it definitely accelerates development. I think you mentioned this before, but we talk about this one firm approach so much. Do you have a good memory or a story about a one firm experience?
When I first got to KKR, it was actually right around budgeting season. And so I remember heading into management committee where we were going through a strategic review and how we were going to allocate resources for the following year. And at most other firms, those processes, they tend to be a little bit of a food fight and a real competition for resources. So when I came in, I was really ready to advocate for KCS. And I presented our strategic rationale for the resources that we needed. And I got the exact opposite of what I expected. Different managers and leaders around the room had said, you know what Eric had presented is really compelling and really important for the firm. And so they voluntarily reduced some of the resource asks that they had to fund some of the needs in KCS. And I literally almost fell off my chair. It was just really an example of everyone always wearing their KKR hat, thinking about the firm, thinking about our clients first.
That's a really cool story. And I think the one firm mindset extends also, in my experience, to the investing side. There was a deal a couple of years ago that I was working on where KKR's private equity team was selling a business called RB Media. And the credit and markets business, through multiple different teams, got the opportunity to participate in the process, work on the sell-side financing read, and then also, through multiple businesses, evaluate the opportunity to make a principal investment in the transaction under a new owner. And I thought that was such a cool experience because it really showed how we, as a firm, got to stay invested in a business that we thought was very high quality, even after the private equity team had decided to make its exit. Can you share a little bit about what you think makes a successful analyst and associate at the firm? And from the ones that you've seen be really successful, what stands out about them?
Yeah, 3 things. So the first is you really want to be client-centric. And what that means is ultimately putting the needs of our clients ahead of your own. And it means doing what you say you're going to do. It means delivering expertise, but like really having that client centricity, I think is really important. And my second piece of advice is, and you got to stick with me on this one, we want our junior professionals to be really great lane swimmers and water polo players. And let me explain what I mean. So we need our junior professionals to keep their head down, work hard, deliver what they need to deliver. But at the same time, we want our junior professionals to pick their head up. And by the way, as a water polo player, you're taught to keep your head up. And that's because we want them to see the whole field. We want them to see the whole firm, make connections, and look for ways to have a bigger impact. So again, head down and head up. And then I would say the third thing that you need to do is you really need to hold yourself accountable. At the end of the day, you should never point your finger at somebody else. You should always ask yourself, what can I do to help generate a better outcome or fix a client problem? And so really it's this idea of be client-centric, keep your head down and up at the same time, and then really hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think the way that we think about wins and losses as an entire team and as a firm is really unique. We win together and we lose together, and then we get better together. Building my internal network was also really important for me. I wanted to understand not just what I was working on every day, but also how that fed into what KKR Credit Markets was working on, and also the entire firm. How do responsibilities evolve as you progress in your career at KKR?
There are a lot of ways that your role will change and evolve as you continue to grow your career here at KKR. I would say the first thing, which maybe is obvious, is that as you grow in your role, you take on more responsibilities. And that could be a bigger remit across more avenues. It could be actually going even deeper within a specific area, but ultimately you take on more responsibility. One of the other things that oftentimes happens, especially for high performers, is that you get an opportunity to take on some leadership and management responsibilities. And at first could be maybe leading an initiative. It could be managing a small team, by the way, which grows over time. But this opportunity to have a broader impact on the organization through leadership and management is a really important development opportunity as you grow your career here at the firm.
Yeah, as I've made the transition from associate to principal, I'd really describe the principal role as somewhat of a quarterback. You have to be involved not only in the execution and delivery of materials, but you also are much more involved in the process broadly, in strategic decision making, in structuring deals, and really just making sure that the process ultimately comes together. So I think that's how I've seen my responsibilities evolve over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it's interesting, one of the other things I'd add is this, and this is also a really good part about being here at KKR. You get the opportunity to make some mistakes, right? Great leaders and managers, they're not born, they're made. And so this idea earlier in your career to get these opportunities to learn, maybe fail, learn again, it's actually really unique to the organization.
Yeah, I think for managers today who have given me some leeway to make those mistakes and then correct myself along the way and do better next time, it's been immensely helpful for my development professionally at KKR.
And by the way, it's not just for junior professionals. Let's be really clear, no matter how senior you are within the organization, you're always going to make mistakes. And this idea of being a learning environment here is another really great part of being at the firm.